The Rolling Stones, their Satanic Majesties Request, right now on States and Kingdoms. Welcome back to States and Kingdoms. Today we're talking about their Satanic Majesties Request in mono. Yes. Important detail. In mono.
This was actually pretty much like a breakthrough album for you with the Rolling Stones. You know, you really liked this album. Mm-hmm. It was the Dukes of Stratosphere that really kind of led us to listening to this more. You know, and you like this. I mean, I like it too, of course.
No,
but
keep speaking for me.
I'm just talking for you.
Thanks.
You like this a lot. I'm saving time. You don't have to waste.
So I don't have to search for the words and.
You know, well, we had, of course, the stereo release. I still like the stereo version of this.
They both sound really good.
The mono version does have that punchiness to it. You know, the drums sound really good. One of the songs that I really liked on this is "Sing This All Together, See What Happens." The like abstracted sort of reprise version of it sounds really great in mono. I really like that.
It's pretty crazy too. It's just interesting. You know, I mean,
it is.
For the time, for the Rolling Stones themselves, it's just a really unique thing they did.
Well, we went in, I think we talked about the stereo version, we went into a little bit more about I guess what expectations would be for this album, considering it's always talked about as, you know, a Sgt. Pepper this or that.
Right.
And I know it's a kind of a divisive album, but I think objectively it's pretty terrific. And you know, I know that you know, they aren't that fond of it. I know. I think that.
What do they know?
I know. What do they know? That hasn't really changed. Although I don't know if anyone's asked Bill what he thinks of it.
Excuse me, Bill.
Excuse me, Bill. My opinion hasn't changed. I hear this as being, you know, closer to, you know, bands like Love, or the Byrds.
Yeah, totally.
Of that time, and certainly, you know, not as much to the Kinks as Between the Buttons. I thought that, you know, you heard that connection.
It was very strong on that album.
But I also hear this, of course, as very much the next album after Between the Buttons. It progresses in a totally normal way. I don't, you know, that's one of the things about the Stones, actually, when you listen to them chronologically, I don't hear any real leaps. Like, you can kind of hear, you know, where they're going.
Yeah, it always
each album.
makes sense. It's a progression.
Even from Out of Our Heads to Aftermath, which is the biggest leap, it's not completely, you know.
No, because there's some bands where there's such a huge change or such a huge shift in sound that it's almost like, well, hang on a second. Did you come up with that yourself, or did you just take it?
What are you talking about?
I'm not going to name any names.
What are you talking about?
I'm not going to say anything.
What are you saying?
I don't know what you're talking about. I've heard...
You know, your hate mail. The other thing also about this album, and Between the Buttons, we didn't really talk about, I don't think, on that. I meant to say it, but you can really hear certain people being influenced by this. And one little Beck Hansen definitely is...
And I knew that, and I always enjoyed the Rolling Stones filtered through Beck.
Yeah,
that was my favorite way to listen to the Rolling Stones for a long time.
It's absolutely there.
It's so there,
no question.
Even on here, I heard things that were like, oh, that's on Sea Change, like that Sea Change, and that's on The Information. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a strong.
It's there from the beginning too.
Yeah,
actually,
it's a really really strong. Well, of course.
Yeah.
It's on Mellow Gold too. And we're going to talk about all the Beck albums.
I mean, I like Beck. You like Beck a lot. But obviously something like the Brian Jonestown Massacre is too obvious to even say like they were influenced by this.
Well, no, I think Beck is an interesting one to talk about because it's obvious, but also you could completely miss it. And I think it's missed a lot.
I think a lot of people did want to go for the Beatlesque thing with some of those records, and it's actually Stones-esque,
right?
In a lot of his approach. Anyway, I think this, you know. So okay.
Anyway,
there are some. I Sing This All Together. I love the way it's done. I love the
I love the noisiness of it. I love the just sing along part of it. It's a great melody.
The kind
it's infectious.
The sort of like call and response or line singingness to it, with him singing and then everyone singing. It really reminds me of some of like the shape note singing, that you can hear, the gospel stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's cool. It works really well. And, the reprise, I don't call it a reprise, but it's like an abstracted version of it. And,
it's really effective.
Things like that can be hit or miss, but I think it's fantastic. I think they do a great job of that. And it's sort of, it actually has precedent with, some of their longer songs that we were talking about, like, we're going home, on Aftermath. And they're saying that it's not so much jammy, it's rhythmic.
Yes.
And that is absolutely on this. The way they're approaching this.
Yeah, the rhythms are continually shifting and
building
morphing.
And shifting. Yeah.
So it's never like one note. It holds your interest, and it's always compelling.
Just like lone kind of, overdriven guitar in there, and, playing around the melody, and then the melody comes out, and,
you can really get lost in that song.
It's very good.
It's kind of trippy.
In mono, the especially if you listen to it really loud, which is what we do here.
Yeah, it's what we do.
The drums kind of hit you in the chest.
They really do.
It's really good.
They're real brown notey.
No, that's that would not be the chest.
It starts up here.
How is that how is the brown note in the chest?
I felt it there.
What is going on? There are numbers. I mean, I love the Lantern. That's such a cool song. Citadel is an awesome song. We talked about the guitar sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I think, I still, like I said, I still think the stereo version is worth listening to. I really...
Also, we have the nice cover with the...
lenticular cover.
Lenticular.
But I think this is an instance of definitely having both. Usually, I mean, a lot of times, I would go
I'd have to go back and forth listening to both again. A little bit more.
Usually go for the mono, although it depends. I mean, it depends on what their intent was. This sounded
really good. Sounded really good.
But I like having both. I would listen to both. I don't know if we got into the She's a Rainbow.
Love.
The love thing.
Comes in colors.
'Cause it's funny how there's a little. I know Arthur Lee was a little bit contentious, but I know that it's a little bit. He's like we talked about with we did Aftermath, and we both said that really Revelation, it doesn't sound like that, and I don't really like that. I don't, as much as I love that album, I don't really like that song.
Yeah.
But with this song, I always was like,
it's pretty close. I prefer that song. If we're looking at both, I do prefer the love song.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. That album is at least half. It's the one side is an absolute masterpiece. But yeah, it took me a while to warm up to this song. It's funny, and you actually were like Dandelion, which is not on this. I love
Dandelion. I still remember it was a Hallmark day for Jenna Newton. I heard Dandelion on the radio, and I was like, "Wait a minute, that sounds like the Stones." I was like, "No, it can't be the Stones. Is that the Stones?" It is the Stones. I like it. The end. You're like, cut.
That's a good opening for side 2, which is what it is. For the word psychedelic gets thrown around a lot, but I don't consider this in any way, like any kind of standardized psychedelia.
No.
It's really very, very good and layered. And in the original review, we talked about the Mellotron on 2000 Light Years from Home and how awesome it is. And that just brings us back to, Brian Jones, and still there's so much depth to the playing on this album. I mean, really, there's a lot of instruments. I mean, it's, it continues, what they had been doing, from Aftermath to this. I mean, it's just every album seems to have Brian Jones playing more and more stuff.
But this album feels super dense to me, and the more I listen to it, the more I feel like I dive a little bit further into each song. There's really a lot going on, and it's not too busy, and each song is very, very different from the next. But there's just, it's super layered and really interesting. It just makes me want to keep listening to it because I feel like there's stuff I haven't heard yet in there.
It's not a superficial record, definitely. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to hear. And, and of course, they never did this again, which is...
kind of too bad.
It's, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
The next album is, I think...
I think you're going to like it.
Yeah, I think the next album is just fine. But yeah, they never did this again. Obviously, Brian Jones was, his role was diminishing rapidly. So I don't remember, as usual, with any of the videos we've done, I don't actually remember what we've said. I don't really remember what I just said. But the...
it was great.
I know that we really love this album, both of us. We agree. The stereo version, which is the only one we had known, because I had never, heard this in mono, we liked just fine.
Very much so.
I like this at times better. I think I honestly, I think the Sing This All Together, See What Happens in mono is something else. And, Citadel, I think 2,000 Light Years from Home has a little bit more punch to it, a little bit more, the drums sound fantastic. So I would, I'll listen to both. But the album itself, the material, everything about it, is I think phenomenal.
It'll always be one of my favorite Stones albums.
Yeah.
For sure.
You don't think of the Stones, you don't think of them making music like this, but this isn't just, to me, this isn't just a detour. This was like a necessary thing. They did extremely interesting music. They all did, even if, it wasn't just some tangential music they made.
It wasn't,
and it does
I don't feel at all, and I know we already said this, but it wasn't...
Stuff. Next stuff.
This wasn't a copying of other people's styles.
No, I don't think
this
so.
is definitely the
At
Stones. It still sounds like them. They weren't, aping anyone.
No.
Thank you so much for watching our discussion of the Rolling Stones, their Satanic Majesties Request in mono. Please let us know what you think of this album in the comments. Make sure to like this video. Subscribe to States and Kingdoms, and we'll see you next time. We have new videos coming out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thanks so much.